creating an endless cycle of recreating gambling offenders isn't an option under both sides. So in place of imprisonment, you're opting to just give them a social service and skill training to them until they recover. Note that this is such a low effort way for realizing the fact that they did just commit a crime, being actively also passed as an ill-treated person by skipping imprisonment entirely, which is so wrong under status quo, which is why we are so proud to oppose under their side of the house. Firstly, a few setups under our side of the house. Firstly, what does social service and skill training actually looks like? This feels like therapy sessions, support groups, and counseling specifically for the gambling offenders to create emotional regulation, self-control, and problem solving, and in the end of the day, release them into the wild again, right? Secondly, who are these gambling offenders in the first place? We feel like they are a group of those who commit crimes to pay for their gambling debts, or those who are convicted of illegal gambling activities in the first place. This doesn't look like minors that can't be imprisoned either way, since this not aligned with the law today. And secondly, this also doesn't look like people that does do gambling but legally, because in which some of the countries do actually allow gambling to some extent, but not illegal gambling, right? Thirdly, what is the goal of these efforts? Firstly, mainly to avoid imprisonment that would create an endless quote-unquote violence for these peoples, and that they allegedly do not deserve any of this, which is wrong. Why is this the case? Because note that these have also made numerous people either go in the same rabbit hole as they do, or worse, being a victim to their own thefts. For example, fraud or forgery, etc. Note that these aren't fair for the victims if these offenders just to get a free pass at the end of the day, which is why the standard of this debate is to clearly make how can they give the best procedure to elucidate preventive actions and also long-term solutions for both sides of the house for the offenders themselves. Few preemptives under our side of the house. Government may state that this is as an effort to once and finally end gambling addictions for good once and for all. But note this, the caveat is that this policy doesn't give them the effect they deserved. If they don't face the consequences in the first place of an imprisonment, then they could just flawlessly go through social service acts as a front to be let go without paying both financially and principally for the victim that they put for themselves, right? Framing under their side of the house. Firstly, opposition will give you a notice that the criminals do get what they deserve and do also repent with their crimes. 2 points here. Firstly, how? We do give these imprisonment with accordance with the law, and secondly, we also give counseling to them as an effort way for trying them to recover in the first place, right? Secondly, this may seem as a resource waste in the firstly, but this is also a surefire way to crystallize our efforts. Why is this the case? 2 points here. Point A, because we get the justice we deserve for the victims and actual compensations for the criminals instead. Secondly, because we do give the effect of these criminals that the government side of the house cannot give, and that is a deterrent effect with these imprisonment that can happen under our side of the house, can happen under government side of the house, right? Argument on the side opposition. Firstly, principally, this is so wrong and practically has no benefit at all given the status quo in the long term. Note that these criminals are identical with having an addiction, right? Which means it takes time for them to recover in the first place. If this is implemented, then the social service and skill training that is given must result in the criminals to either A, walk freely, or 2, remain without intense view of law enforcement. This doesn't happen under 3 analysis. Firstly, opting for social service and skill training may seem like a good solution short term. Yes, this may be, but there's no practical solution for the long-term problems. Note that if this is implemented, then these offenders are expected to follow and implement the training accordingly. This doesn't just happen. Why? Because criminals, especially addicts, doesn't just convert that easily. It'll at least take a decade for any changes to occur in the first place, and even if this may seem like a resource-efficient solution, all of these gets thrown away under the bus even more if these criminals just make a front to follow along and instead of instinctively just commit another crime, the same crime over and over again under your side of the house, right? Thirdly, what are the impacts of this premise? Firstly, on the principle side, this doesn't justify the loss that these victims would experience both money and time. And secondly, practically, this doesn't create consistent results since there's no deterrent effect whatsoever that imprisonment gives. Even if in prison there's a worry if these offenders get violated or hurt, note that this doesn't happen that frequently. Why? Because since the biggest criminals won't just be grouped with the gambling offenders of all the time, right, in prison. Thirdly, on the comparative, under opposition, we give a concrete solution on how we can comprehend the problem with the criminals being on the same page, that what they did was wrong, what they did to the victim was wrong, and they are willing to open their minds. And B, what are the worst case scenarios under our side of the house? Firstly, making them despise the efforts of social service in the first place. Yes, they may happen, but this is still okay under our side because we at least give them a chance to see their wrong while also making their efforts to change easier in the first place by providing them these efforts on our side of the house. Since what's the point in saving someone that doesn't know that they are in trouble in the first place or doesn't worth saving in the first place, which is why we are so proud to oppose under this side of the house. Vote opposition. Thank you.